In this example, I'm going to show you how to select a simple random sample from a list of structures from a full enumeration of all structures in a community. I've created a fake data set. In column A, I have structure ID. You can see that every one of these is unique. And in column B, I have the building type, just in case that some of you have listed non-residential structures. We'll want to remove them from our list before we do our sampling. And so you might have other columns. You can hide those columns. These are the two we're going to focus on for a simple random sample. The first thing we're going to do is exclude the non-residential buildings. To do this, I'm going to filter, and we'll just sort out the ones that are non-residential. So what we're left with are only the residential households, or rather residential buildings. Now we're going to create something called a random number, which is going to help to make this list so there's no longer a structure to it. At the moment, our structure ID has got a community ID, a path or road ID, and a number that's sequential. So it's organized in some kind of way. And we want to make this completely randomized. So I'm going to make a random number by simply pushing equals RAND and then close and open parentheses. And Google Sheets is offered to fill in the entire column, and I say yes, all the way down to the bottom. So every single record that I'm showing now has a random number. So I'm going to use this random number. Oh, and I want to also show you that every time I resort or do something else, let's change the sort order here. The random number will automatically regenerate every time you do something new to the sheet. And so what we want to do is, rather than have this be this dynamic equation, which currently, let me hide this, currently shows equal random, and it's going to redo that random number every time I make a change, I want to permanently keep a set of random numbers. So the way I do that is I can select the entire column, right click and copy, and then I can paste over itself by right clicking again and then pressing paste special and values only. So it's going to copy and paste only the values that are currently selected and not any of the formulas behind it. So let's select that. And now you can see that each of these random numbers is permanently saved in a cell. Okay, so now these are my permanent set of random numbers. And so if I sort these random numbers, here, let me add the filter to that column. If I sort by random number, and I again remove all the non-residentials, we don't need to see them in here, it now has completely changed the list of structure ID. So now these no longer have an order from the top to bottom of my spreadsheet. And I'm going to use this characteristic. All of these random numbers range from 0 to 1 by default, which is fine. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. What we're going to do is randomly select a set number of households. In this case, it's going to be 300. We want 300 households from this list. And I'm just going to pick the first 300, and that will give me a simple random sample because all of my IDs are completely randomized at this point. So let's put in another column called sample ID, and this is going to be a number that ranges from 1 to 300. So I'm just going to drag this down until I reach 300. Getting there. Whoops. Select a few more of those numbers and keep dragging. So somewhere around here, there we go, 300. So these are my IDs, my sample ID for the households that I'm going to select. And now I've got the structure ID attached to it. So let me make this all part of the same filter. We can reorder our structures in alphabetical order. Our random numbers are only generated for the residential buildings, and then our sample ID is only assigned to those households, or those structures I should say, which have a sample ID. Everything else is not included in our sample. And so let's just take this list here and only show, we can remove all the blanks of basically the non-sampled households, and we can reorder this. From A to Z, and we see here is our sample again of 300 households with sample ID. And now that's enough to start your survey planning. Good luck!